Joining us to look at this conversation is politician and educationist Ariola Oluka. Good morning and thank you very much for joining us.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
All right, but first of all, let's look through a list of the allegations being investigated in the Ministry of Women Affairs by House Representatives Committee on Women Affairs and Social Development. And there's diversion of 1.5 million naira funds meant for contractors. There's non-payment of 1.5 billion naira to contractors despite fund release. They're spending 1.5 million naira on vehicle fuel, spending 45 million naira on a New Year party, spending 20 million naira on sanitary pads, misappropriation of funds appropriated for the African First Ladies Mission. The Minister, Uju Kennedy-Ohanenye, has, of course, denied all allegations. I think the first angle to look at would be that she's being called, she's been asked to clarify all that's been going on. She's, of course, said that it's a trap. So I'd like you to tell us what your thoughts are regarding this. First of all, what does he say about the ministry? Even though, yes, there's innocent until proven guilty, she said it's a trap. But what does this tell you of where we are in terms of administration of these ministries and, you know, what the situation might actually be?
Okay, thank you very much. Let us just put it on record that our minister is very passionate and the way she's going about her job with a lot of passion in it. It could be better and it could be more precise. So the thing about it is that I think both of them, even the House and the chairman, Mr. Barra, the way she addressed the investigation was totally wrong. The way the minister answered the question was totally wrong. It is true that she was trying to clear herself from it because it was more like an allegation than anything. What I would expect the minister to do, except the House did not send out all these things before they said it there at the place. Because what they said is that, oh, she spent so on that. I expected her to have a breakdown of everything that was spent and what it was spent for. That's all they are asking. But I think it's the manner and the way that the things are being asked and then the bantering that's going on that's the problem. Because it seemed like an allegation. It seems more. It wasn't like as if we were inquiring about it. And you know the thing about it is that there's trust issues everywhere. Trust issues is what I say at play here. She doesn't trust them. They don't trust her. We don't trust ourselves. Nigerians, we don't trust ourselves. They have trust issues. So I think the thing about it is, if you're going to, accountability is very, very important. If they had sent her those things and said, this is the problem we have, this is what we want answers for, I expected her to have been at that briefing with answers to those questions. All right. So that's the only way that I think would have worked out. Yeah.
All right. Of course, this might have looked like a show of shame to many Nigerians. Many times we've seen arguments. First, we did see an argument erupt some years back where the current president, I'm talking about the current president of the Senate, the speaker, beg your pardon. And then we've also seen something similar occur recently. We did see something happen when it came to Betta Edu, another appointee. Now we're seeing this again. And it seems like it's just about the women. Is it that the position is becoming too tough for some of the ministers to handle? Or are we seeing a case where I'm in and it's time for me to eat my cake and have it? What do you think about these situations? I
beg your pardon on that. I think we're making more of an issue because it's the women that are concerned. We see the men bantering themselves every day. The other day we saw them throwing chairs. The other day we saw someone being investigated and they asked questions. And at the end of the day, they kind of shut him down and bullied him. And either got suspension and after he came back. So all these things are just normal, just human nature. And I think it's more to do with Nigerian politics the way it is. There's so much, there is unprofessionalism in every sector. It's just amazing, you know. That's just all it is. I don't think it has anything to do with being a woman. That is what look at what's the percentage of women that are in government? Do you understand? So every time one woman does something, another one does something, it's picked out and people just go for it. But that's not the case. I don't think it has to do with women. I don't think that, yes, we are emotional beings. But you know, I think when I was reading the thing and watching it, I was thinking to myself, I think what it is that she was going to be saying to herself that, look, I'm not going to accept anything on record here, live, and then they're going to hold it against me if it's not true. You can't ask someone to say yes or no to something that they do not have the full disclosure on. That's not on. It's not on. So I mean, she could have said in a different way. I think what we need to do as women ourselves is that we go to a bit more training on etiquette and how to answer questions and how to behave in public and how to be professional about the roles that we have. I think we have a lot of work to do in that area as women. But the facts are the facts. Where are the empirical facts? Where show me what it is that you've said. They've just been throwing bad things at her. They have no proof, nothing to say this is what and what and what. If they'd come up with data, then we can say, okay, yes, because I can't even judge. I can't even say, did she do it? Did they not do it? Did they not whatever? Because there's nothing that anybody has said. They've just been throwing words around. So it has nothing to do with women. It will happen if it was a man as well. That's something I want us to be clear about.
And I completely agree with you. I mean, we've seen a number of them, even in the past administration. Whilst we're talking about Sadiq Umar Farouk, we also have Hadi Sirika. There are people who, at the end of the day, what it is that we have structures that encourage people. It would seem that we have structures that encourage people to go there and, cave into corruption, or, like you said, and I agree with you, that there's a trust deficit such that even when there might not have been a case of corruption, there would automatically be an assumption of corruption. Now, let's talk about, what the typical next steps should be regarding this. There has been an allegation. Uju Kennedy has denied these allegations. And in your response, you said she probably didn't want to be caught on camera. She'd been accused of making some statements on that oath. What would you say should be the proper next steps on how this should, be investigated, and should we even expect an end result? I ask this because it's been 6 months since we heard of Betta Edu's case, and we do not know the conclusion to the investigation of that matter. So what should be the next steps, and should we actually expect some explanation?
Okay, thank you very much. Yes, we should expect something. Let me start with that. As a citizen of the Federal Republic, I demand an explanation, and I expect to see it in the public domain where we can all assess it. So the next step, I think, should be that the House, if they do have questions that they want the ministry to answer to, they should please send it to the ministry, asking for a detailed explanation. You cannot say you're investigating something, and then you come out and accuse the person of that thing that you're investigating. When the chairman on the community, Mr. Barra, spoke the first time, she said that, oh, but they are investigating, but there's misappropriation of funds. How can you be investigating? You should have done your investigation and then come out with concrete evidence to say there's misappropriation of funds. You don't put the, what's the word? You don't put the cat before the horse.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's not going to work like that. So yes, I know what it is. In Nigeria, we always just make noise. Somebody will faint. Somebody will do whatever. We will not hear the end result. I am looking forward to hearing the end result. And I expect that the minister, once they send her the thing, she will come down with even a simple infographic on how that money was spent, what they did with it. And with the new money that's been allocated, we expect to see a proper infographic telling us how that money is going to be spent. Because all I hear her say all the time is that, oh, you cannot give, if people don't have money, they cannot do anything. We know that, but policies live on after you. Not just the money that you're handed over to people, the keke napep. Are they going to live on after you? We have a deficit in education that needs to be dealt with. How are we going to drive that? Because without that education and the girl child being educated to a certain level, we're going to be back to this square one that we're in. Just to a waste of $500 billion.
During the Buhari administration, we had heard that corruption was going to be tackled headlong. And now that we've seen President Bola Ahmed Tinubu's administration as well, corruption was also one of the highlights, especially looking at some of the comments made by the current president. But with instances of ministers being called to the book, for instance, we did have Betta Edu, we also had the Minister of Interior, and here we are again, we have another minister, and it seems like that fight against corruption is not even happening at all. What do you think this would do to the renewed hope regime, or the renewed hope statements that were made right from the start?
Okay, thank you very much. So for me, I think this call on corruption is just a call, mouth call. It's not anything. There have to be processes in place. There have to be things that will help accountability. There have to be like a process where we know that so and so would happen if this happens. It's not just enough. So let us say the minister now is held for corruption, which is not the case right now. We don't know until she states her case, and then they sack her like they sack they do. All the whole thing that happened, where did the money pass? Who went through? Blah 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 blah. All those things. How those other people, are they not going to be held accountable? For as long as we continue to avoid all those things, we're going to go back to the same thing. So everybody's going to come and start crying corruption, corruption. The ones that are accused of corruption, the ones that are being accused of corruption, corruption is just all over until they put systems and processes in place. Listen to my words. We would not do anything. We just be coming and shouting about corruption all the time, and then we will hear nothing about it, and that'll be the end of it. So a process has to be, accountability has to be enshrined into that, all those in sectors, and people's heads have to roll. Yes, I said it, because we're just be shying away from this whole thing and just saying, oh, that. But if from the person that carried the first file to the person that signed it and the process, there's a permanent secretary there, for goodness sake. And they're working together? Isn't there collaboration happening in those in those ministries? She cannot on her own do whatever. She has a political function. The permanent secretary owns the ministry, basically. He owns the ministry. What is happening? I mean, we cannot now use politics to rubbish everything else, that all the structures and systems that have been in place in all these ministries, and then get away with it. So I think until the citizens of the Federal Republic of Nigeria demand accountability, that's another strong one. Because we're not demanding, we laugh over it, we make jokes about it. Go online, see people are laughing and say, our turn don't reach. No, that's not what we want to do. So we want a system in place that would hold people accountable all through. And then we would know that we were looking forward to the end result of this. This is not going to die. Citizens of Federal Republic of Nigeria, I challenge you, let this issue not die. We must see the end of it, demand for it, and it will come to pass.
How exactly, what would the shape or the face of demanding for accountability and demanding for transparency, what would it look like? Because so far, some would argue that we've been demanding for these things for years. We've been talking about it, but the effect or the necessary change we're not seeing. So what would that look like? And what are some of the actions that you're seeing now that makes it look like we're taking this as a joke?
With all the banter you see on social media, everybody's taking that as a joke. Nigeria is a cruise. People are laughing over the issue and saying, people should leave her tone as come. I mean, regardless of whether it is right or wrong, or whether she actually did it or not. So this is the same thing. So everybody knows that when you go there, if you are accused of anything or anything happens to you, just wait. After a while, Nigeria will forget about it and move on to the next big news that comes on. That's what has happened when they do, for instance, they moved on to the next big news. So demanding for it is not just talking about it. I know we've been putting out several petitions, and I've been an advocate for petitions and putting out several, but we can now write to the House, to the chairperson, if it does come out. But first of all, we need to wait for the investigation. We need to have concrete evidence that, yes, these things did happen before we take it. We go take the next step. Next step will be writing to the House as citizens of the Federal Republic, getting our signatures on it, demanding that the whole process be looked into, and that everybody that was responsible for it, everybody that partook of it, everybody that shared part of the money, they're all investigated and brought to books.
All right. Does it wonder, or does it worry you in particular, and just as it does many Nigerians, that it seems like the ministers do have more access to monies, and their spending power seems to be uncontrollable? And I'm still saying this because of the recent issues we've seen in the past 1 year in this current administration. Take, for instance, we've seen the figures that are being alleged to have been spent by the Minister of Women Affairs. And if we look back at the other ones that were also alleged to have been spent by Benda Edu as well, and then we track back and so on and so forth, it seems like it's a recurring thing where ministers can spend bogus sums of money and then nothing will happen. Do you think that it's high time that, possibly there needs to be a foundation where before anybody could spend XYZ amount of money, there needs to be something that needs to be put in place so that we can actually either get facts or possibly put it on the papers and let's know what these monies are being used for? Because like you said, after all this shouting, nothing will happen. Nothing.
Yes. So like I said before, I said there has to be some kind of system and processes put in place. I was watching her interview and she was boasting that, she talked to the minister, to Edu, and he approved and sent the check now. And I'm thinking to myself, who does that? In what country? In what world? Do you understand? How can you do that? How can you over a phone conversation and he says, I must get the documents today, and then what kind of bragging rights are those? You know what I mean? So obviously, like you said, they seem to have some kind of power that I don't understand. some kind of power that there's nobody checking them. There's somebody who have power that they can do what they want to do. That should not happen, and that should not occur. So there has to be a way that she's not the only one that would request for that money. She's not the only one that would disburse that money or do it. And then I see her saying, "Oh, it's all about me, me, me. I went there, I did that, I sent this to that." I'm like, I think it to myself, she has a whole ministry with her. Why is she the one doing all this, and why is she the one bragging about it? What I see about our minister, like I said to you, passionate woman, we have to commend her for the work she did with the marriages and all that. Commend her for that. So well done, madam. But I see that there's a problem with understanding the processes that need to be in place and understanding your role as a minister. And I mean that with good intentions. So it's either they're not being trained properly, or the job description is not being given to them, or there's something lacking somewhere. That needs to be looked into.
Okay, I want us to talk about female representation in politics. There's also been a bill that's to create 74 additional seats at the Assembly. It's passed the second reading. And we remember from the last administration, 5 bills referred to as quote-unquote gender bills were kicked out. But it does seem like a number of these bills are being represented in this administration. How do we strengthen more, female participation in politics? And, I don't know if you care to share your thoughts on the creation of 74 additional seats for women.
Okay, so I saw the thing. I think it has gone past the second. I think it's gone the third reading right now. Okay. Commendable as it may be, I still think that we as women, we need to sit together. We need to train ourselves. What we want to do is go there and show capacity. We don't want to go there and just go for the sake of going to taking up those 74 additional seats. We want to go there and show capacity. So I think what we need to be doing right now is investing in ourselves. And I hope part of this money that they're doing for Nigeria for Women project, because our minister kept talking about project. There's more to your ministry than projects. I hear you when you say people are hungry, but then the other things that you need to do, there's training that needs to happen. So training, for instance, would be one of the things that I would expect and I would hope that they would do with this money that's coming as well, so that women are empowered and then they have the capacity, and competent enough to take those roles on. Because without that, if we take on those roles and we are not competent, it's going to just be the same story again. It won't make a difference. So whether we have it or not. That would be my thoughts.
And also, are you of the opinion that the standards are not maybe in some measure balanced? I feel, some would argue that the expectations are a lot more, that the stakes are higher, that the judgments can be higher for women in politics.
True that. But then that's why we need to make sure that we're up to the task, because we're struggling and fighting for a seat. And nobody's going to give it to you on a platter of gold. So that's why I insist that we need to train ourselves. Like, for instance, I've done a lot of trainings as well. There's the School of Policies and Governance that I've gone to, and I encourage most women to go to it. So to learn the ropes and understand what it is that we need to do and understand our function in those things. Because that's what it is, really. Yeah, men are going to, they feel like they're doing us a favor by giving us that 74. So every step of the way, they're going to be watching us. The world is going to be watching us. The media, which is the big problem, are going to be watching us, unfortunately. So we need to make sure that we are competent and we have the capacity to take on those roles. That's just the way life is. We've always fought for everything, even in the workplace. Women have fought to show that they are just as competent. So it's not going to be any different in politics, I'm afraid.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for joining us and sharing your thoughts with us. A politician and, of course, educationist, Ariola Oloko. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me. Thank you.